This is the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. So, you've heard from, at the time, all the conversations we're having in the country about politicians and about how we should speak, irrespective of whatever happens. Speak and be bold in everything that you do. Let me say good morning to our listeners in Kumasi listening to us on Love 99.5 FM. Welcome to the Super Morning Show. Edgar, Wiredu, Manasseh Azure Awuni. Let me start off with you, Edgar. So, look, it's been 9 years from 2014. But of course, in this administration, it's been more than 6 years. When you go around today, the conversation is, why are people not speaking up? We've seen the middle class in times past speaking, taking governments on. Why the silence? Don't they know the role of the middle class in every country's development? Why is the Ghanaian middle class shirking its responsibility in playing that crucial role?
Well, I think it's not the guys that you have to play their voice over and over again. I mean, these are the guys that I wouldn't consider them as middle class, okay? These are upper middle class people. Yes,
but what's your categorization of upper middle class and middle class?
Oh, the kind of cashes those guys command, you don't command some. I mean, yeah, when you listen to Ken Oforiatta, I mean, you are nowhere near Ken Oforiatta.
No, of course I know.
Certainly. I mean, you are nowhere near Ace. Okay, yeah, I mean, so you are in the middle, they are in the upper.
You don't know what is in his account, so
my account is not.
please.
Small.
Oh my goodness. No, whatever is in his account, right? On the status level, he's middle. All right. As to where the excesses are coming from is a different matter. I mean, unless, of course, Joy is doing some very fantabulous,
Joy is doing well. Okay. But not up to the upper middle class. I'm not there yet.
Okay, let me be quiet. So, well, I would say that, yes, that is the upper middle class people really talking. So it's not the middle class. But, you see, the problem we have is what extent can the ordinary human being, or the middle class, as you put it, what extent can they go? Apart from talking, what extent? You cannot go and drag somebody from his office or say, Mr. Policeman, take action against this or do this or do that, right? It's only talking you talk. Just like our, how do you call it? What's the name? Our MPs in Parliament, all right? When this, what's the name? The new taxes that were introduced just after these IMF deal issues and then the taxes on sanitary pads, right? The minority spoke against it. But what happened? At the end of the day, the majority says pass it.
At least they spoke against
That is the point I'm making.
But for people today, they say they don't even talk.
You see, people are talking, but you are limited in your powers, okay? And being a human being, for how long can you be repeating yourself? Somewhere along the, I mean, you're human. Somewhere along the line is like, Masa, I talk attire. I mean, these are real issues. These are real issues because you cannot continuously be making the noise. It's like it gets to a point in time you become, what do you call it? Like you are. I mean, you're even disturbing people's ears. Every day parroting. The problem we are having is that some institutions that are in place that they have to work, that are not working. That for me is the problem. And we have certain structures in the system that makes it such that should we continue with all the developments, advancements that we're going on, right? Should it always be the case that somebody must go and make a complaint before an action is taken when the thing is visible in the eyes of everyone? You see, the police will tell you that not until you've made a complaint, no action can be taken. Not until something has been referred to Iyoko, no action will be taken. Not until something has been referred to Shraj. They always want someone to petition.
That's the law.
That's the point I'm making. So the question is that structure, you see, limits the middle class or anybody who wants to speak.
Okay. Let me bring Manasseh in at this point. I'll get back to you, Manasseh. What's your view? I mean, and I'm sure you may have heard, a lot of Ghanaians make this point, that today people are not speaking as much as they used to speak in the past. What's changed?
A lot has changed, and I tend to agree with almost everything Edgar said, but I would want to add a bit to it and also look at the general perspective. I believe generally that everywhere the middle class is crucial to the development of every country. There are people in Agbogbloshie who don't have a voice. There are certain things they need, and no matter how loud they shout, someone in the Flagstaff house will never, Jubilee house won't hear them. But I don't know whether I'm even a middle class or lower middle class. But if I put a tweet out, they are likely to see. You find a minister saying, "Oh, Manasseh, I read this your tweet or your Facebook post. Couldn't you have done this or all of that?" So the middle class, in my view, is supposed to hold the upper class or the ruling class accountable to the governing class, or accountable to the working class. So if I can go to a certain hospital, I can pay for private hospitals. So I can go to a hospital and leave after 30 minutes. But there's someone who will go to Kolebu at 4 a.m. and by 1 p.m. or 2 p.m., he or she may not be lucky enough to see a doctor. They would have to go and come back the following day. So if I am selfish, and I think, and that's what a lot of the middle class, they believe in, they are like a rock in the middle of a river. No matter how hot the sun shines, they don't feel it. They are like crabs. If we are complaining about headache, they don't have hair, so they don't feel it. So there's inherent selfishness in our society, and it has affected the middle class. But if we are looking at all of these, we have a number of reasons that I think people may be quiet. They may be quiet because of even the motive. Some were speaking. Okay, they are an exception. So generally people are quiet, but over the years there have been exceptions, and that number was good enough, loud enough for people to even want to compare. So let's look at the middle class that opted out to speak. Why were they even speaking? For me, those speaking had three motives. We have people who were genuinely concerned about the problems of our country: doomsday, corruption, mismanagement, and the rest. There were others who were also speaking because of politics. Even though there were problems, these people were talking because NDC is in government. The person is not known as a politician. They are neutral, so to speak, but we know they have political leanings. So they will speak only because NDC was in government, MPP was in opposition. So they were advancing a political cause. So they were not people who were genuinely outraged because of the bad governance. And there's also a third group. This group makes noise to be recognized and be invited to the dining table.
Okay.
So theirs may not be political, they may not be genuinely concerned, but the more they speak, the more they make the political capital gain influence and use that influence to trade for certain benefits. So if you look at all the three, you would realize that those who did that for political reasons obviously have their party in government, so they don't have any motivation to speak. Those who did that and gained political capital, some have used that political capital to get juicy appointments, and others have used that to also get consultancies and certain contracts. So they may be private people, they are not in government, but we know what they do and the benefits they get in this government. So perhaps without putting anybody in the spot, and these are practical reasons, the demonstration, the July 1st, 20 Occupy Flagstaff House, I think it was something that gave us hope that those who used to sit on the sidelines are now in the middle of it. As we speak, the convener of that protest is now heading a government. That person is a political appointee, sorry. So you don't expect that person to come out and talk the way they were talking. The question now is, we have the genuine ones, those who were genuinely outraged. They were not motivated by politics or their personal greed or whatever personal benefit they intended to get.
Okay.
But today, a lot of them are not as vociferous as they used to be. And I think there are two reasons for that. The first reason, Edgar mentioned it, fatigue. You get to a point that you get so tired and you ask yourself, to what end? Even as journalists, we get to that point that we get so tired. You're talking about the same thing, nobody's minding you.
Yeah.
And sometimes they even ascribe reasons. Now, when I go anywhere, hey, Manasseh, you and your friend Zoom Lion, everybody talks about it. It's been 10 years when I keep on saying that it doesn't make any sense as we sit here that the people sweep our streets. They go home with 180 cedis a month. Meanwhile, they take our tax 600 cedis a month to pay them. And then there's an arrangement that says give 420 to Zoom Lion and give 180 to the sweeper, meaning they go home with 6 cedis a day. Today you can buy watches 6 cedis. An egg is 2 cedis 50 pesos. They can eat kenke with their daily earnings. The president at the time, Akufo-Addo, who we were deceived that he was a human rights activist, he's sitting at the Jubilee House. He knows this. There is no humiliation and abuse of human rights than this. He's now going about praising the same man he and his people at the time were saying was defrauding the state. So if you are talking about this for 10 years and nobody is minding you, what would be the motivation for me to even go ahead? And sometimes you even feel that there's injustice. I did Jida. Abu Gapele was imprisoned for 6 years. But if you look at that Jida report, there's no way Abu Gapele should have gone to jail when Clement Kofi Humado, who was the minister at the time, and signed some of the worst contracts our monies have ever been used to sign. He's free. Philippa Sibit of Goodwill International Group is in jail as we speak. But RLG, Zoomla, and the Zira Group, in the Jida report, even if you ignore what I discovered, the government commissioned a report, a committee, and they came out with the report, they mentioned them. So you get to realize that, okay, even after doing the work, even after shouting, they will target the small fishes and leave the real culprits. So if you have a sense of justice, you begin at a point to question yourself, why should I even be speaking? And then the final reason, which I think that a good number of the genuine people, genuine voices, the genuine middle class have decided not to talk, is that there is now a high cost to pay for talking. 2018 or so, I was in a conversation with a very prominent civil society activist in this country who said he started this speaking up and civil activism in 1996 in the Rawlings era. But he had never been so fearful for his life as he was at the time we were having this conversation in the Akufo-Addo era. So there is a price to pay. Sam Jonah mentioned the culture of silence. People took him on. As journalists, you have people who are genuinely afraid to do what critical journalism, because these are realities. The government is living in a sense of denial. They would say it doesn't happen. But I've said many times that the first time I reported a death threat in this country was in 2017. And I reported many times, nothing happened. You go to the police station, headquarters, not even a small police station, CID headquarters. They made me see the head of cybersecurity. You present all the evidence, the IP address, nothing comes out of it. Within this period, I've had to go out of the country 2 times because of death threats and real security threats. I have had to, at a point, drive with armed police escorts. So if I'm telling you that it is not as safe and secure as it used to be, it is a reality.
Okay.
Then you find certain other things. We talk about the...
Let me come back to the other things later.
Okay.
I mean, I'll get back to you shortly for the other things. And this morning, we're having a conversation about Ghana's middle class. We've asked the question, why is the middle class so quiet? Because you've been telling us, we don't hear them, we don't hear. So we said, okay, let's get some of them and let's have a conversation. I'm told that we're joined by Samson Lardy Anyenini, who is the host of Newsfile. He's a lawyer also, and he wants to make a contribution. He's joined us on phone to contribute to this conversation. Samson, good morning.
Good morning, Winston.
Hope you're doing very well this morning.
How do you normally say it? You say God is taking good care of us.
Yes, God is taking care of his children.
Right.
So let me ask you the same question. I mean, I've been asked this question several times, and I say, look, how about have a conversation about it? Let me get your views on it. I mean, Edgar has been telling us how sometimes people may be saying the same things and they get tired. Manasseh has introduced the fear factor. What do you say is the reason?
Right. I'll mention something briefly about what Edgar said, and there's a part of it that we need to situate a lot more properly in the context of the law. I think it's a very good discussion. You have some of the best people that I love to hear on the show discussing these matters. So I won't have to say much about it, except to say that I feel that when a lot, of course, goes wrong and people at certain times get up and they want to advocate and insist that there is good governance and the corruption is minimized and all of that. But when we have a certain demand of a particular group of people who have been heard perhaps once, and we say, you have been heard before, why are you not being heard today? I think that is faulty and that is wrong. That today something irks me, and it is right that I comment about it, and I comment about it. Today, I feel that there's a demonstration, against the Auditor General not, exercising his power of surcharge and disallowance, and I joined the demonstration. It doesn't make me one that the public and the media should expect that anytime there's an issue, I will get up and go on a demonstration. What I expect is that those who haven't done that, for a long time, and who feel that at a certain time they too want to participate, they should be allowed to participate. So I feel it's not the best to condemn people who have once, it doesn't matter what their political background is. At every point in time, I believe that there will be that class of people who will feel irritated by the wrong to the extent that they will not just want to sit in their rooms or in their offices and hope that some journalists will just go and do the work, but they would like to also, step out there and be heard, because this country is theirs as much as it is for the ruling class. So I thought that there's a need to have that perspective also. I am happy when you play that sound, for example, where we covered Occupy Ghana, Occupy Flagstaff House, where you heard Ken Oforiatta, Asan Kuma, what's his name again now? The man in charge of, is it the
PPMC, Nana Kwesi Awuah.
Yes, Nana Kwesi Awuah. There's the other one, is it Jojo, or the other one too, now in charge of the is it
Yofi Grant?
Yofi Grant?
Yes, Yofi Grant. all of these guys, and some of them, they came with their families, their wives and kids. I remember that very day how I stood at Ifwa Sutherland Park watching them and feeling proud as a Ghanaian. You know, those of them who are in power, who are in public office, we can play this back and hold them to account. But those like Kofi Bento, Ace Nkrumah, and the rest of them, if at that time they felt that they could make a contribution, and today, if there's an issue and they don't want to get on the street, I don't think that we should say, you were on the street the last time, why are you not on the street today? I think that is unfair. Now, Edgar mentioned that something that doesn't help him or discourages him or that he's not happy about is that everything you need a complaint. If you don't make a complaint, the police can't move. If you don't make a complaint, Shraj cannot move. No, that's not correct. I mean, bluntly speaking. There are situations where the law allows, for example, Shraj. If you read their act, section 218, thereabout going, there is only one portion where the court held in the Richard Anani case in 2008 that you need an individually, an identifiable person who is lodging the complaint. Okay, who is lodging the complaint about the where they have breached their code of conduct in their office. You know, they have acted in a way that is in conflict to their oath. It says that one, you need an individually, an identifiable complainant, either a human person or an artificial person. That's a corporate body to make the complaint. So let's situate that and be careful not to suggest that for everything you need a complainant. But why? When we see there is wrong, we should complain. There are people making complaints. Let's make the complaint, as many as we can, and, you know, inundate these offices with the complaints and let them act on them. Manasseh is telling you some of the things. I am his lawyer, so I know that too many things that we have had to be fighting here and there. It's not a comfortable thing to be doing, but I think the most important thing that we will need is public support for people like Manasseh, the things they do. Look, and even for being associated with them, the things you go through, you know, the hate and the targeting that you get, the how you get your life is endangered. It's terrible. It's terrible. But we must expect that these things will be in society, except that those people who are at the helm and in leadership must give a posture that suggests that they denounce such things and they support the people who will speak up and who will challenge those who are doing wrong and get them exposed.
Great. But Samson, I mean, on that point, that maybe the person felt it was important to speak at the time and may not feel like speaking today. I mean, the question you get people asking is, if you put yourself up there to, speak against the wrongs at the time, if there are similar wrongs, why don't you speak against them? That means that's your position. So why the silence this time?
Well, you have not appointed them to be, agitated for your state. In any case, you don't pay them to do that job. They are not funded by the public purse to do that kind of job. So if it is something they do, we should allow them to do it when they want to do it. But those who do it, and then the next time we see them in public office, we should hold them to account. We should tell them, you said this the other day, this is what the situation was. What are you saying today? And when they begin to put up, the hypocritical posture and suggest that, all is well, then we call them out. And I think that is perfect. That is what we should do. Colonel Furata was on the street. Yofi Grant, they were all on the street. They were all demonstrating. Kofi Kapito, all of them. Ewa, all of them. Those of them who are in public offices now, we should not grant them the chance and opportunity to suggest to us today that the things that they were against and the things we are seeing today, are not the same. And we should call them out, that they are hypocrites, okay? That they are only politically interested in political power, in making sure that one government leaves so they come into power, and that's the purpose of their demonstration. That one, I think that we are at liberty we can be granted the liberty to accuse them of that and let the public know that this is who they are. They don't have, principles. But if it is, the ordinary Joe who feels that today I want to join a demonstration and tomorrow they don't want to join a demonstration, we shouldn't get at them and insult them. And I see a lot of that going on. It's not right. And the people who are talking, they should also join. Every day, you and I, Winston, we are talking about these things. We get criticized. Sometimes you are shocked that there is plain wrong. Plain wrong. And you are talking about, and you are not talking as if you are not manufacturing, scenarios and talking about, you are talking with evidence. And yet, the people in power and their supporters, they come at you and insult you. Those are the people we should expose.
Please hold on a minute. Let me bring in Shamima Muslim. Shamima, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, my brother, and good morning to my colleagues in studio.
Great. So, Shamima, what's your position? I mean, look, this is something that we've been talking about in studio. Samson joined us to contribute briefly. But for many Ghanaians, they ask the question, where is the middle class? Why are they silent?
Very well. So I only caught part of Manasseh's contribution. So I don't know what has been said so far. So for me, I think that I would move a bit backwards from where is the middle class to who is the middle class and what do we expect from that middle class? Because I think that to move forward substantially, there's got to be a clarity. Because you said most Ghanaians are asking, where is the middle class? Who are these most Ghanaians? Are there elements of middle class in these Ghanaians who are asking? Those Ghanaians who are asking, what are they doing themselves? How have they defined themselves? Because obviously it won't be the political class that is asking, where is the middle class? So these Ghanaians that want to know where the middle class are, where are they themselves and how do they categorize themselves in the scheme of things? So I think that contextually we must know that the idea of the middle class became a buzzword in the early part of this 21st century. Okay, and historically, to become part of the middle class, it was measured by certain minimum income, and that's all it took to be considered middle class. Of course, that is not what pertains today. The middle class was viewed as the class that would be the pot of gold at the end of the light at the end of the tunnel, basically, because we're thinking that, and the literature is rife with thoughts and knowledge about how the middle class can and actually did contribute as a driver to economic, social, and political development. There are assumptions underlining this conception of middle class. That, well, they are mostly educated, they are on an upward mobility strand, they are mostly well-informed, so they are knowledgeable. And the assumption is that if you are knowledgeable, then you understand governance better, then you understand politics better, then you understand the social economic milieu with which you live and work and operate in better. And so you understand what needs to be done and how it should be done. And so you're in a better state to be able to point out wrongs of the ruling or political class so that our collective resources are put to a more optimal use so that politics, which continues to be the overarching vehicle that drives us to the promised land, that politics delivers a life of dignity to the majority of its citizens and ensures that social services, education, health, development outcomes reach every corner of our society. Unfortunately for us, I think that the problem with this middle class hasn't quite delivered, in the way that the theorists envisioned that they would deliver this accountability. And that is not without saying that middle class members will not be aligned. In our current situation, we have middle class, which is loosely defined as mostly people within the formal sector. But we have now known that using that income indicator doesn't work because many people within this category of middle class have not been able to pull themselves to prosperity as a result of the poor economic conditions. So you might even see somebody within an informal sector who is doing better and well, a market woman at Makola who perhaps has no benefit of formal education, might be more well-versed in understanding the economy and being very responsive to the changing type of the economy. So for me, our middle class is beyond just our educated class. It includes our informal economy actors, most of whom may not have had a certain level of education, but are well aware about the economy and its effects on what they do. So, having said that, my next understanding of the problem with our current middle class, if you are asking where they are, now that we know who they are, is to say that the issue of values, the issue of integrity, and the issue of conscience ensures that the tides and weights and waves of conscience come just like the sea. So we will periodically in our history have a wave of conscience that would wake up a mass of people who will rise up and make demands. And when the tide recedes, that conscience goes away with it until the next wave comes along. That's how I have seen it. And if we're asking where they are now, Manasseh has given us examples, and Samson has also spoken about it. The fact is that at every point in time, as individuals, and we all have to come back personally to reflect on how we ourselves engage our society and what informs our engagement. I think for us as media, we have conceded that especially within this current dispensation, as we have experienced with other dispensations, but within this current dispensation, there seems to be a more critical attack on the media and media freedoms. We have held programs where we ourselves have confessed to be self-censoring as a result of the attacks, perceived and real, that we think we receive from government agents when we seek to hold them accountable. So, if the middle class is suffering the same disease, they should let us know. If they are also self-censoring, they should let us know. They should also let us understand what is informing their self-censoring. Are they self-censoring now because they have food in their mouth and they are now aligned, which is what we do? Because my understanding of our middle class, as I have defined it, is people who are mostly aligned. We don't have a homogeneous group. They are mostly aligned by heart to a certain political regime and dispensation, or they are aligned by interest to that regime or dispensation. And those attachments, they come in different forms. Because at the end of the day, every human being wants to prosper. But then there are voices of conscience who, irrespective of their heart alignment or interest alignment, because everybody is working within this space for prosperity. Whether you are a person of faith you want that your church will survive, your members would work and get money and come and pay their tax. Whether you are a member of civil society, you want a system that allows for you to be able to express yourself, that will take and use some of your research findings. So somehow we are all interconnected and we are all linked. But we are fast dissipating on values. Values meaning that even if you are aligned by interest and by heart to a certain dispensation, that you are still able to speak truth. So if you're a member of Occupy Ghana yesterday and you spoke specifically about specific things of corruption, of wanton dissipation of public resources, of poor infrastructure, if you were able to vocalize the fact that you work so hard like a bull in this country and you expect your president, who is the leader, to also work equally as hard to deliver on the social contract he has with you, that same voice of conscience should tell you, even if you have become an appointee of this government, if you are not able to vocalize these same things publicly, it should still be able to tell you at a point if you think that things are going way out of the context with which you thought coming in would lead to you contributing. Because I want us to also agree that we are not saying that once you have criticized a certain political dispensation, then you cannot make yourself available to the political dispensation that your criticism favored. Because we are the same people who are asking that people who think they have skills, they have capacity, good people should offer themselves for public service. So that space exists. Otherwise, what are we talking about? So we need clarity in terms of our expectations of this middle class. We don't expect them to only be vocalizers and criticizers, but we want them to also come in and work to change what they criticize. But I'm saying that now, if you find yourself in a system that your criticism favored, the outcome of which favored a certain system, and you find the same ills, you find the same wrongs, and you think that you have drawn attention, you have tried to change the situation, and it's not changing, then you owe it to yourself to resign from that system as a matter of principle.
All right, Shamima.
But you cannot act like you don't see evil, you don't hear evil, and you don't know evil. There is where the problem is. The very fast dissipation of our value and integrity system, and the conscience that comes with the wave and go away with the tide. We need to be a bit more consistent, and we can be consistent even whilst we are aligned politically by interest or by our heart leanings or our historical, leanings. So there is where I want to put in, because everybody is talking. At the beer bars, we have the conversation. People are talking, but we must claim back our voice as ordinary citizens, whether we are aligned or not, because the lines are currently so blurred. So let us not waste our time trying to make the difference that you are non-aligned, you are aligned, or you are a middle class, or you are neutral, or you are a floating voter. If you're a floating voter, even before elections, you have issues that you are aligned with and issues that you are non-aligned with. Issues that you have problems that you think need to be addressed. For those issues, kindly speak out. Right now, there's diversity of platforms to engage. There's social media. You don't have to come and sit on television. You don't have to come and sit on radio. You can use the power of your social media to speak about your realities, your lived realities. And if you have a certain skill level and knowledge level that you think others might benefit from a deeper understanding of the issue, please share that knowledge. Because this country is all we have. And nobody will build this country for us. So we must have this value conversation, and we must bring back this spirit of patriotism. There is burnout, and Manasseh alludes to it. How long can you continue saying the same things and being threatened, and you're growing, you're a family, you're a person with children, you're looking to create a safe space for your child, And we all know that sometimes governments can be too vitriolic and vindictive. And so and we know, because some of these middle class people have spoken, that being critical leads to a certain excessive scrutiny on their affairs. In a system that is so complex, that's so hard, sometimes you can't dot all your I's and cross all your T's. You can't live in perfection. And we must not be saying that individuals and citizens must attain a certain level of perfection in terms of all of their expectations as citizens before they are able to criticize wrongdoing. If the road is bad, if there's no water, if there's no light, if there's corruption, which is obvious and evident, if our leaders are not being congruent, they are not living by the creed with which they preached to us, we should be able to speak, even in our state of imperfection.
Great, Shamima. Please hold on 1 minute. We'll get back to you. This morning we're having a conversation about Ghana's middle class. We've asked that question, where are they? You've asked the question, why are they silent? Edgar, so you've heard from, Samson has made a point. He's talked about, well, maybe the people wanted to, speak in the past. For those who are not in public, offices, they wanted to speak in the past. They don't feel like speaking. Why should we be asking them to speak?
Well, as I said earlier, and then, we all get to the point that, yes, some people may have the energy and then the breath to continue speaking. Others too is like, look, I'm tired. I don't know what else I should say. I don't know what I haven't said. And that was what I was trying to drum earlier, that the authorities in question, those who are supposed to pick up these things and then work on, they are failing to do their job. Okay, I wanted to ask Samson a question. Unfortunately, I think he's off the line. Like, he is the one who was behind, or should I say, was trying to make a case for one lady that was molested or beaten or whatever at a Midland Bank by one police officer. I don't know if you remember.
Yes.
The police officer is still at post. Nothing has happened to him. Samson was on the case. I wanted to ask him. So at this level, what can you do? Apart from, and when you talk, do you get the desired results?
Tell me, do you?
Exactly the point. You can only talk. Like Manasseh has enumerated a couple of things. 10 years. Is he the law enforcer? He is not the law enforcer. It is only talk he can talk, right? So for those who are charged with that responsibility of taking up these matters, if they are not working, to what extent can you continue parroting? You should understand some of these things. But then again, Manasseh raised another fantastic point that I want to look at. We need to understand from the point Shamima was trying to make it look like it shouldn't be limited to a certain group of people, but then who are those who are within there, or who fall within the middle class, or Ghanaians in general. One of the problems we also need to appreciate is the fact that by the way God created us, we have the introverts, we have the extroverts. If you want to look at the temperaments, the 4 temperaments of the human beings and what have you, it's not everyone that has what it takes to bell the cat. Okay? So to a certain extent, right, there are what we may call the vulnerable, okay? And then it is for the strong to fight for the vulnerable. As my brother was trying to make mention of, classified as the agbobloshi, so it's for the strong to fight. All right. But then one of the things is this, that when you have callous people, the ones Manasseh will call the selfish type, all right, they're taking advantage of the weak and milking the system and doing what have you, because you are, as it were, powerless, or I have the power. Something funny happened the other day at the Public Accounts Committee when the Deputy Attorney General was being asked the question that you are the prosecutor, so who prosecutes you? You see what it is like? So the one who is supposed to do the job says, I'm not going to do it. To what extent can you go? You get it? So to certain levels, when people are being placed in positions of authority, there's a lot that is expected from them. When they are failing to do their job, the appointing authority, what does he do? Even in Africa here, we've seen a lot being demonstrated by Kagame in his country. He gives you a job to do. You fail to do the job, he whacks you off. And he doesn't just whack you off. You are off and you never get any public, appointment again. You get it? So if the IGP is failing to act, ordinary human beings, what can we do? And we speak about the matter. It is up to the appointing authority to say, look, XYZ has gone on and on and on. You are failing to work. Get out and let another person come in and take over the job. So many things go wrong, and the people who are in charge. We sit in this country, not too long ago, a soldier goes to court, and soldiers walk into the courtroom and go and take him out of the courtroom. The impudence. And these are soldiers coming to court with guns. Then you are asking yourself the question. So even the policemen at the courtroom, right, who are supposed to provide protection for the judges and all the human beings around, they stand there and can't do anything. And then they walk away. The question you ask yourself, so the CDS, what did he do to those soldiers who went there? So if the CDS is not acting as ordinary men, and we make the noise, to what extent would our noise go to correct that system? So you have a situation where, as I said, there are people who may have that voice. There are people who are bold enough, those who will bail the cat, all right? But they are limited because they don't have the power apart from the talking.
Okay. Manasseh.
Yes, sir.
Are we limited? We don't have the power? Are we, fed up because, like, Edgar made earlier, we've talked and talked and talked, and now we're fatigued. We're tired. It's like nobody's listening.
Yes, I mentioned that earlier. That is the most depressing aspect of the job. There's a saying that hunger which has hope for its satisfaction doesn't kill. If you're talking and you know that something will change, there is that fuel to continue talking. But if you are doing activism and it keeps getting worse, let's even look at the political space. We felt Mahama was the worst thing that ever happened to our democracy. And then people would say, no, this man must go. And there was nothing wrong with being a journalist or somebody. I've said it many times. I wanted Mahama out. I didn't vote for him when I met him. I told him. So there's nothing wrong with that. Then Akufo-Addo comes. And there are even no words to describe him. Then you want Akufo-Addo to go. Who is lacing his boots on the political touchline? It's Mahama again. How are you so hopeful that when he comes, things will change and get better? So sometimes the hopelessness alone can make somebody say, well, I'm done with it. But I agree with Samson to extent that we shouldn't make some people public contractors. That when there's something that you have to talk about it, then you have to call them. There are people who call me to do certain stories or investigations, and I tell them, look, I'm not going to do this. That you are in a state institution, they are deducting you wrongly. There was a time some nursing group that they were doing some illegal deduction, and they were not prepared to even show their faces. And I'm saying the thing is affecting you. You have evidence. Why can't you, as a group, even speak up? And you say, no, if you have to do it, you have to do it secretly. You can't speak to us. So that's a problem. Sometimes the people you fight for gang up against you and then fight you. And those who are saying the middle class are quiet, calling them out every single day. Go back to 2014, 15, 16. There were those who were saying you talk too much. Are you the only sensible person in Ghana? So when it favors them, the middle class is quiet. when their opponents are in power, and when they come into government, they want everyone quiet. So I think those who elect themselves to speak up, and I agree with Edgar, that in every society we have certain people who must fight for the generality of the people.
Okay.
So society has certain expectations of you. Society respects you for some of those things. And you cannot just say, well, I'm going to do it when this government is in power, and I'm going to stop when this government is in opposition. Because that's where sometimes the problem comes from. There's nothing wrong with being affiliated, but if you project yourself as non-aligned and you speak not as a politician, okay, for there are certain people we place value, even this public discourse. There are certain people whose voices you don't respect so much, because you know that when power changes, they are going to speak differently. And they are consistent. If it's MPP, it's MPP. If it's NDC, NDC. But if you project yourself as someone who stands for the interest of the public, then there is that natural expectation that you stay in that position. Some of them have not only kept quiet, but the very things they were condemning, they are supporting today. Some of the middle class. And generally what I say is that if we tend to say that, well, I don't care, the good thing about this bondholders issue, the good thing about it is, going forward, people should be concerned about the governance of our country.
Yeah.
There are people who believe that, well, I have made enough money, let me take care of my family, let me invest in bonds, let me do security, let me do this, secure my family, to hell with whatever is happening. But today, they are out there. Those who are affected are not your ordinary day-to-day hustlers who can hardly save at the end of the month. A lot of them are the middle class people. So I believe that whatever happens in this country, whether good or bad, we are affected in one way or the other.
Okay.
And we should speak up, whether you are up there or down there. And if you are down there, you cannot speak up. Don't join forces to attack and insult those who speak up on your behalf, and then accuse them of being quiet, when sometimes it gets to a point that they feel there's even no sense fighting for people who gang up with their oppressors to attack me.
Let me bring Shamima in at this point, and as we wrap it up, finally, we'll be activating the phone lines shortly. So going forward, Shamima, you started by talking about what is expected, but are you convinced that this will happen, and that the very people you expect to speak would actually come out to speak?
Hello?
Hello, Shamima. Yes.
Oh, sorry, I was distracted a bit.
Okay.
Right. So, I agree largely to what my colleagues have said, but I think I want to also just add that narrative is important, and we must build a society where every single member of the society feels entitled to contribute in whatever way they can in building that society. The reason why I'm saying this is that we must not build an entitlement society where some group of people think that they have no power at all. Whereas I agree, that's why there are differences. The fingers of the hand are not the same. There will be people who are more exposed, who are more educated, who are more knowledgeable, who have more power, who have more influence, to whom much is given, much will be expected. But I'm saying that foundationally, let us build a certain love for country from the base, from the so-called less middle class, from the lowest of classes, from the poorest of people. We are the media, we have the power of narrative. Let us create more empowering narratives about the power of the people. Because if they cannot fight for themselves, Why should they vote? Voting alone is power to the people, and that power to that person at the grassroots, that poor person who cannot make ends meet. Every 4 years, the politicians find them. So our narrative must, address those categories of people in ways that engender more confidence for them to demand what they want. So it's not an either or situation that I am describing, that because the description of the middle class is now quite nuanced and the lines are not too clear. It's not a strict line that you are a middle class and you are a poor class. We must necessarily ensure that narratives address the empowerment of grassroots to be able to demand better.
Okay.
Now, however we define the middle class today for our benefits, which includes me, you, and all of those in studio, there are some fundamental agreements. Yes, there is general burnout. Yes, talk alone cannot change systems and reforms. And so we must also be careful how we frame the narrative to not attack the people who are in this same middle class while we are asking for them to talk. That's why I asked, number one, for clarity on what we expect of the middle class. Clarity on our expectations from the middle class, so that we don't end up further alienating. Because just recently, the former Chief Justice, he said that the politics is so dirty that, respectable, I beg your pardon, person within our society will go nowhere near politics.
Okay.
So we must ensure that our narrative is not further pushing the middle class who have a voice, who have power, who have influence to speak. And not only to speak, but to do some actions. And that's why I would come back to the issue of Occupy Ghana. Because in as much as Occupy Ghana has become so dissipated with respect to some of its members being now in government, we still know that they have still done some work. And that the whole Achimota Forest debate thing, they have done some work. They've gone to court. We must encourage that. My point is that we must not say it's an either-or situation. That if today you are critical of government, then you should never be part of any government.
All right, Shamima.
In the same breath, if you can just give me a few more minutes, in the same breath as we are asking
just 1 minute
for middle-class people to go into positions of power, we must not seek to demonize all of them with one brush stroke. Okay, and set them up for public ridicule. What I call on, however, is consistency and integrity. That if you were critical about certain issues yesterday and you find yourself in government today because you saw yourself to be able to contribute more positively, you must still be critical about those issues even as you're in government.
Thank you very much, Shamima Muslim, for joining us.